Paula Meehan.
Thanks very much, Theo. Thank you. It's great to be here, not just because we're all swinging our laurel leaves tonight, but because I've soldiered long in the mines of poetry with all these women. So it's brilliant. This is a historic occasion, without a doubt, and I hope it presages more prominence for women poets in the times to come. I thought I'd start with a lullaby because Dublin now is such a multicultural city, and everywhere I go on the Dart and on the buses, on the Lewis, our trams, the mothers, generally mothers, are lulling the babies with the lullabies in every tongue imaginable, in Mandarin, in Yoruba, in Igbo, in Latvian, in Russian, in Polish. It's just really like Finnegan's Wake, come home to the city at last. So this is just a lullaby I wrote for my sister when she arrived in the door one summer's day, and the response from the parents was, "You're what?" So she was 16, still a baby herself. Lullaby. My sister is sleeping and makes small murmurs as she turns in a dream. She is swinging a child under the shade of a lilac tree blooming in a garden in springtime. My sister is sleeping. The rain falls on Finglas to each black roof. It lashes a story of time on the ocean, of moon on the river, and flashes down drain pipes into deep gutters. My sister is sleeping, her arms full of blossom, plucked for the child who dreams in her womb, rocked in tall branches close to the stars, where my sister is sleeping within her small child. I'm going to go straight into two poems that I got from my grandmother. Her voice, even though she died in the late 80s, her voice is with me all the time on a daily basis. So, and in fact, I heard from the wings in Theo's beautiful introduction that he spoke about this little poem that was inflicted on a generation of Irish school children. It's, "Would you jump into my grave as quick? Would you jump into my grave as quick?" my granny would ask when one of us took her chair by the fire. "You, woman, done up to the nines, red lips come on, your breath reeking of drink, and your black eye on my man tonight in a Dublin bar. Think first of the steep drop, the 6 dark feet." Thank you. And this, a memory of her voice, one November when the report into clerical sex abuse was published in the Diocese of Ferns down in Wexford. And it was dark November, I was listening to the radio and I heard my grandmother's voice, her wise, wonderful, powerful, salty voice of the inner city of Dublin. And my grandmother was quite typical of that generation of women who were very devoted to Our Lady and to the church, to the holy space of the church. And I spent a lot of my childhood on my knees before the statues, lighting candles. But she was also absolutely anti-clerical. Hannah, grandmother, and this is dedicated to Hannah McCabe, my young friend, who I think is in the audience tonight. Coldest day yet of November, her voice close in my ear. Tell them priests nothing. Was I 12, 13? Filthy-minded. Keep your sins to yourself. Don't be giving them a thrill, dirty-minded elf feckers. As close as she came to the birds and the bees on her knees in front of the Madonna, Our Lady of the Facts of Life, beside the confessional, oak door closing like a coffin lid, neatly carpentered, waxed and buffed. In the well-made box of this poem, her voice dies. She closes her eyes and lowers her brow to her joined hands, prays hard, woman to woman. And this is a poem called Folktale. I think every generation has to make it new, has to make it sound new. But I think what we code as poets, even unbeknownst to ourselves, are ancient things and hard-won truths. So this is Folktale. A young man falls in love with truth and searches the wide world for her. He finds her in a small house, in a clearing, in a forest. She is old and stooped. He swears himself to her service, to chop wood, to carry water, to collect the root, the stem, the leaf, the flowering top, the seed of each plant she needs for her work. Years go by. One day the young man wakes up longing for a child. He goes to the old woman and asks to be released from his oath so that he may return to the world. Certainly, she says, but on one condition. You must tell them that I am young and that I am beautiful. This next poem is a poem called Home, and I got it after being sent out on tour in the north of Ireland just before the first ceasefire. So it was around 1994. That ceasefire didn't hold, but the subsequent one, touch wood, is holding, more or less. But it was a very dark time. It was November again, and the light was hard won to stay in it. It got dark very early, and I was travelling around different venues, theatres, community centres, back rooms of pubs, and everywhere I went, the musicians, the guys and women playing the tunes. The tunes could be owned by everyone, really. However, the words, once I opened my mouth, all my cultural baggage was there to be seen. So this poem came out of that journey. Home. I am the blind woman finding her way home by a map of tune. When the song that is in me is the song I hear from the world, I'll be home. It's not written down and I don't remember the words, but I know when I hear it, I'll have made it myself, I'll be home. A version I heard once in Leitrim was close, a wet Tuesday night in the Shanrellig bar. I had come for the session, I stayed for the vision and lore. The landlord called time, the music dried up, the grace notes were pitched to the dark. When the jukebox blared out, I'd only 4 senses and he left me senseless. I'd no choice but to take to the road. On Grafton Street in November, I heard a mighty sound. A travelling man with a didgeridoo blew me clear to Botany Bay. The tune too far back to live in, but scribed on my bones. In a past life I must have been kangaroo, rocked in my dream time, convict ships coming o'er the foam. In the puzzle factory, one winter I was sure I was home. The talking in tongues, the riddles, the rhymes struck a chord that cut through the pharmaceutical haze. My rhythm, catatonic, I lulled myself back to the womb, my mother's heart beating, the drum of herself and her world. I was tricked by her undersong, just close enough to my own. I took then to dancing. I spun like a dervish. I swear, I heard the subtle music of the spheres. It's no place to live but out there in space on your own, hung aloft the night. The tune was in truth a mechanical drone. I was a pitiful monkey jigging on cue. I came back to earth with a land, to rain on my face, to sun in my hair, and grateful too. The wise women say you must live in your skin, call it home. No matter how battered or broken, misused by the world, you can heal. This morning a letter arrived on the 9 o'clock post, the Department of Historical Reparation. And who did I blame? The nuns, your mother, the state? Tick box provided, we'll consider your case. I'm burning my soapbox. I'm taking the very next train, a citizen of nowhere, nothing to my name. I'm on my last journey. Though my lines are all wonky, they spell me a map that makes sense, where the song that is in me is the song I hear from the world. I'll set down my burden and sleep. The spot that I lie on at last, the place I'll call home. Thank you. Okay. This, I suppose, where I live now, out in a suburb outside Dublin, one of the great joys of my life was a small coastal meadow. And I think during our boom times, what was called the Celtic Tiger, I think everyone lost a field or some small space that suddenly became a site. People weren't selling houses with gardens, they were selling houses with sites. Everything was a site. So this is called death of a field. The field itself is lost the morning it becomes a site. When the notice goes up, Fingal County Council, 44 houses. The memory of the field is lost with the loss of its herbs. Though the wood pigeons in the willow, the finches in what's left of the hawthorn hedge, and the wagtail in the elder sing on their hungry summer song, the magpies sound like flying castanets. And the memory of the field disappears with its flora. Who can know the yearning of yarrow or the plight of the scarlet pimpernel, whose true colour is orange? The end of the field is the end of the hidey holes where first smokes, first tokes, first gropes were had to the scentless mayweed. The end of the field as we know it is the start of the estate, the site to be planted with houses, each 2 or 3 bedroom, nest of sorrow and chemical, cargo of joy. The end of dandelion is the start of flash. The end of dock is the start of pledge. The end of teasel is the start of aerial. The end of primrose is the start of brillo. The end of thistle is the start of bounce. The end of slow is the start of oxy-action. The end of herb Robert is the start of brasso. The end of eyebright is the start of Purcell. Who amongst us is able to number the end of grasses, to number the losses of each seeding head? I'll walk out once barefoot under the moon to know the field, through the soles of my feet to hear the myriad leaf lives green and singing, the million cycles of being in wing, that before the field become map memory in some archive, on some architect's screen, I might possess it or it possess me, through its night dew, its moon-white call, its slick and shine, and its profligacy in every wing beat, in every beat of time. This is a small poem for the spring, and then I'll finish with a slightly longer piece. Seed. The first warm day of spring, and I step out into the garden from the gloom of a house where hope had died, to tally the storm damage, to seek what may have survived. And finding some forgotten lupins I'd sown from seed last autumn, holding in their fingers a raindrop each, like a peace offering or a promise, I am suddenly grateful and would offer a prayer if I believed in God. But not believing, I bless the power of seed, its casual, useful persistence, and bless the power of sun, its conspiracy with the underground, and thank my stars the winter's ended. Now, this poem is called The Solace of Artemis. Artemis, as I'm sure you all know, was one of the Greek goddesses, older even than classical antiquity. And she has a long association with bears. In the classical period, her rituals were used young girls dressed in bear skins. A few years ago, about 3 years ago, research was published that's already changing the face of conservation around bears. It was research that took place in Trinity College Dublin, Oxford University here, and Penn State University in the States. And by examining 17 different samples of bear bones that they found in sites around Ireland, often at cave sites, and the bear is extinct in Ireland for about 12,000 years, they discovered in the mitochondrial DNA, that's the mother's link back through history, the mitochondrial DNA, they discovered that every single polar bear alive today has, as an ancestor, one Irish brown bear mother. Yeah. So this is The Solace of Artemis. It's dedicated to Katrina Crowe, one of our great national archivists. I read that every polar bear alive today has mitochondrial DNA from a common mother, an Irish brown bear who once roved out across the last ice age, and I am comforted. It has been a long, hot morning with the children of the machine, their talk of memory, of buying it cheap. But I, memory keeper by trade, scan time coded in the golden hive mind of eternity. I burn my books, I burn my whole archive, a blaze that sears, synapses flaring cell to cell, where memory sleeps in the wax hexagonals of my doomed and melting comb. I see him loping towards me across the vast ice field, to where I wait in the cave mouths, dreaming my cubs about the den, my honeyed ones, smelling of snow and sweet oblivion. Thank you very much for your attention tonight. Thank you. Thanks very much.